Hello, this is Alison Henderson, and I am recording my presentation from the Labanarium Kickoff Conference because I would like to encourage other presenters from the conference to also record their presentations. Even if they were live, if you can give us some background, just record yourself on your phone or through the computer and post it on the Labanarium website. There were so many fantastic presentations going on that we had to pick and choose, and there were so many of you that I really wanted to gain knowledge from you and didn't get to see you. So this is my way of reaching out and hopefully starting a trend. So please also record your stuff. Ask to be my friend within the Labanarium site and share it with me. And if any of this interests you, feel free to contact me. The presentation that I did on the conference kickoff was called MPA for Actors and Directors. This is a snippet of the work that I am starting to do with movement pattern analysis and the theater profession. I have a master's in directing and dramaturgy and come from a theater background. So I say that my movement pattern analysis consulting during the day with businesses is the way that I am supporting my theater habit. So I have always had this urge to use movement pattern analysis with actors and directors as well. So I've started to move into that, and I welcome you to join me on this little presentation journey. What is movement pattern analysis? Well, movement pattern analysis was developed by Warren Lamb, who is pictured here. He worked directly with Rudolf Laban, and he applied effort and shape qualities to the decision-making process and worked with business managers. And this all became the thing that we know today as movement pattern analysis. So the movement qualities that we observe in subconscious behavior correlate to 6 cognitive processes involved in decision making. So it's literally the body-brain connection that we all know as movement educators exists. So we are using that to determine the decision-making process and help an individual understand the personality traits that result from this and how they are being perceived by others and how they can use this information in their personal and professional lives to reach their goals and in most cases surpass them once they understand how their brain works and how they are a leader and how they are coming across in the world. So the framework itself looks like this. We're going to be concentrating on the brightly colored highlighted sections of the slide. There are 3 stages of decision making. At the top here on this is attending, in the middle is intending, and at the bottom is committing. And we will get to what all of those mean. You'll see the highlighted sections here. The purple is the assertive approach to decision making in each stage. This is the observer looking at the effort the individual is expressing. And the other way that we can approach our decision making process in each stage is what's called a perspective approach. And this is where we look at the shape of the individual. So in an assertive approach, it is because it is more effortful. We see someone working hard. Everyone understands and knows that an individual is working on their decisions. The perspective approach is less readily observed by the public because it is shape of the body. And so it looks to outsiders like that person isn't working so hard. But in reality, they are literally taking a step back and looking at with a greater perspective at their decision that they're making. And they are positioning themselves within their own environment in order to get this decision made. So a perspective approach is going to be more like surrounding a castle and starving out the people inside without so much outside effort. As an assertive approach to storming a castle would be running up and knocking down the door and having hand-to-hand combat. So this is the way that I use the framework with my clients. I put it on a wheel instead of that stacked format, just so that we have an idea that there isn't one preference over another. If you put it on a wheel, it doesn't necessarily seem like we should move in one way or another through our decision-making process. So again, there are 3 stages here. Attention is the purple, intention is the yellow and orange, and commitment is the blue, and the darker wedges are the effort and the lighter wedges are the shape. So just so that as we go through, you understand the difference in how we're viewing the framework. So MPA for actors and directors, why does this work, or why am I on a mission to share this with the theater community? Well, I had this real logical process of movement pattern analysis uncovering the decision-making process of individuals, and it's very predictive of behavior. We know that if a person is more attention-oriented, they are going to want to gather information before they move on to something else, so we can predict their behavior. And obviously, characters also make decisions. All throughout a play, characters are making decisions. So I decided, what if we analyzed text for the character's decision-making process, and then went to the action motivation qualities that correspond to that decision-making process and use that to inspire the character's movement. So it is somewhat of some people might think it's somewhat backwards, but for young actors particularly, I find in the rehearsal room or in the movement studio, they can sometimes be stymied because there are so many choices. When we say, well, just move, how would your character move? And it seems like infinite possibilities. And this is a way of taking their psychological character, all of the information that they've decided about their character, and marrying it with the movement. So I have found as a practitioner that it is very helpful, particularly with younger actors, as well as just giving people a jumping off place, a place to start with movement, because it is merging the psychological work that they've been taught to do in many of their acting classes with the movement work that we're trying to do in the studio. So for actors, there's a couple ways that this works. One of the best way, or the way that I really prefer to work with actors, is to give them their profile. A personal MPA profile is literally that actor's decision-making process. So in movement pattern analysis, when we work with anyone, we give them what's called a movement pattern analysis profile. So we observe their movement and we code it for what we see, and then that correlates to their decision-making process. So when actors have this profile, they can make movement patterns for their characters, which can be consciously like or unlike their habitual patterns. Movement pattern analysis can really drill down quite quickly into what people's habits are and how they typically move, and are they bringing those habits into all of their characters? Is there a sameness that is going on? This helps actors break out of their habit and perhaps typecasting. The 40-year-old and above actors that I work with, they really enjoy the idea of looking at how they're being cast and how their movement perhaps is pigeonholing them into a certain set of roles. And if they want to break out of those roles, what do they have to do physically in order to break out of that typecasting? And actors also then use this profile for their career choices as well. So the profile as it stands tells you the type of work environment that you will probably prefer, or the types of environments that you'll be successful in. And so it can really help actors with their life choices and with their career choices as well. What kind of process are they going to be more more likely to succeed or just have a better artistic experience in. Some actors want to get in and out. They want a 2-week rehearsal process that's super long and quick and deep dive, and some actors prefer a very long, luxurious 3-month rehearsal process. So there are different types of companies to be involved with depending on the type of profile that you have. All right, if they don't have a profile, which, profiles are expensive, so many actors are not going to have a profile. And if you're a director, you're probably coming into a group of actors, of course, that don't have profiles. There are very few movement pattern analysts in the world, so the chances of them knowing someone that can do their profile, unless they live in the Chicago area and have me go do their profile, or it's a college situation where the grad students have the chance to work with me because I'm being brought in to work with their grad students or something like that. So most likely you're not going to have a profile. So this is where you go from that text analysis to the decision-making process of the character and use the corresponding movement qualities to create movement suggestions for the actor. They're not going to necessarily be looking at, okay, how do I move and how do I need to move differently for this character? They're really looking at just this character. How does this character move? And I have found MPA to be extremely useful to heighten friction between characters and to heighten conflict. And they can use the beginnings of these types of movement for their states and drives to discover knots, twisted circles, scales, all the wealth and richness of Laban movement analysis that is out there. And if you're not a Laban movement analyst, you can certainly use this information to correlate to any pedagogy that you choose. At least it's my feeling that we're all trying to make embodied actors as movement professionals, and no matter which technique you're using or whose theory you're following, we all still move with varying weight, varying speed, varying focus, all of the things that Laban taught as well. So all aspects of the profile can be used, the things that were grayed out on that earlier slide, the decision loading, the identifying, your interaction style, all the richness and layers upon layers that you receive with your movement pattern analysis profile, all of that can be used with actors to create really stunning performances. So what is movement pattern analysis exactly? What are we talking about? The attention stage. This is the information gathering stage. It's made of those 2 approaches that we talked about. Exploring is the perspective. You're taking a wider view and you're looking at many options and alternatives when you're coming to your decision. The investigative side is the effortful side. That's where you're drilling down and you're finding out more detailed information about the decision that you're making. The shape of exploring that we're looking for as a movement pattern analyst is, or if you decide your character is an explorer, you would start from a place of using spreading and enclosing along the horizontal as one of the movement go-tos or movement signatures of your character. For investigating, we're looking at the effort of space. So directing and indirecting for that particular character. And even if you just decided that it's not necessarily exploring or investigating, but this particular character likes information, they ask a ton of what questions, or they are the one that everybody else goes to for information. So you figure, okay, I'm going to say that this character is an attention stage heavy character. Even if you only take the shape of spreading and enclosing and the effort of space, think of the wide myriad of choices that your actor has and the richness that can be developed just from those 2 things. So we're talking about the drives that would be associated with this. Of course, action, vision, and spell could be created with these elements. There's, of course, knots and twisted circles that you could use with this as well. The intention stage next. This is the evaluating stage, which I'm missing a label on there, I'm noticing. But the evaluating is the light yellow, and that is weighing the pros and cons of a decision. So you are determining the value of what it is that this person that this decision, the decision means to the character. So this particular character would probably ask a lot of why questions, wanting to know why they're doing things or why it's important to them, or stressing to someone else the value of this decision. And the shape that we're seeing for evaluating, because evaluating is that perspective-oriented way to make the decision, it's rising and sinking. So this is tipping on the vertical. So that character, if you think about it, as soon as you ask somebody a question, where should we go to eat for lunch, they're probably going to start tipping and say, well, there's that Italian restaurant, or ooh, what about that New Mexican place that just opened up? And they're going to be tipping on the vertical as soon as they are thinking about this, because you're putting them in an evaluative place, because you're asking them that question to evaluate where they should go to lunch. The orange part of our wheel here is determining. So this would be building resolve and persistence against negative odds that come up when someone is making their decision. So this effort is weight. So increasing and decreasing pressure. You need to exert pressure in order to persist against someone who is telling you that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing, and you're saying, yes, we should, and they're saying, no, you shouldn't. There's probably going to be weight exhibited, whether it is just the character grounding themselves deeper into the floor. They could perhaps be pressing against a piece of furniture as they are getting more and more upset, or doing the opposite. They are decreasing their pressure and acting like there's nothing wrong, even though they're still persisting. So there's, again, a wealth of choices that an actor has. And this is what is so fascinating and wonderful about Laban's work, as well as the movement pattern analysis piece. So with this, we would have passion as one of our drives, along with spell and action. And then knots and twisted circles, of course, are going to be in every stage. Moving on to commitment. This is exactly what it says. You are committing, you are taking action. This is the point of no return. So on our blue here, the anticipating is going to be the light blue. This is the perspective side. You are looking long range, you're foreseeing consequences, you're perceiving the stages of action, and perhaps a system that the character might like to use, that they always do it this way. The shape that the character would be exhibiting would be advancing and retreating on the sagittal. So again, very easy to have your character just think about, how am I approaching shape today? And that would give them a much more embodied performance immediately, because they're putting their mindset towards shape. The darker blue is timing. So this is short term. This is seizing opportunity. These characters like to change the pace of the action as it's going on, sometimes just for the heck of it. So timing, that's the easy one to remember. Timing, the effort with that is time. So accelerating and decelerating. So the commitment stage, the action stage is the timing of the action, as well as how you are staging and how are you progressing with the action. So our perspective and our assertive sides. We go back to action, vision, or passion drive here, and knots and twisted circles. So how does this work in a scene? If we are looking at a scene, and I put everything, remember to put our labels on the on the wheel this time. So you see I put investigating is space, exploring is horizontal, moving on the horizontal, determining is weight, evaluating is moving on the vertical, timing is literally time, and anticipating is moving on the sagittal. So that'll help you kind of remember which way things go. What I do with a scene or with a character overall is I ask myself a lot of questions. For this scene, what stage does my character seem to be in? Is my character gathering information, attention? Are they building resolve or making their decision? Are they becoming intentional, which is intention? Or are they in action mode? Are they in commitment? Are they putting this decision to action? That's going to be step one. That tells me whether I'm looking at the purple, the orange, or the blue. And after that, I look at, does my character seem to be more assertive in their approach? Are they more effortful in their approach, or are they more perspective? Are they using others to get things done? Are they more thinking things through and things are more mental than physical going on with them? So for example, if a character is being quite stubborn and immovable in a scene, which would be what we would equate to determining. They're holding their ground, they're persisting against odds, and they're not moving. The director or an actor can choose to use pressure shifts as the primary tactic in that scene. Their movement tactic is going to be pressure. So what we did in our actual conference is this went a little faster because I only had 20 minutes. So I blew through that first part, and we took a scene from the Glass Menagerie and we looked at either Laura or Tom's character, and just to see what words jumped out at us that might help us figure out what's going on in the scene and what their decision-making process at this moment may be. So in this scene, we discovered that Amanda was gathering information. This was the scene where Tom tells her that the gentleman caller is coming and that the gentleman caller is coming tomorrow. And so she keeps asking Tom many questions about the character of the gentleman caller. When is he coming? What does he look like? What is his job? What is his family like? So she's gathering information, which would be the attention stage. And she's also planning for this guest to arrive. She's planning the meal. She's planning how she's going to spruce up the apartment. So she's in commitment as well. She's not spending a whole lot of time evaluating this person because there isn't somebody to hold him up against necessarily. There's a few times where she's a little bit judgmental, but that isn't the primary goal in this scene for her. So her movement choices would be to be dealing with space and with opening and closing, spreading and enclosing, as well as advancing and retreating and changing up her time, her pacing, accelerating and decelerating. For Tom, he's more evaluative in this scene. He's trying to curb Amanda's enthusiasm and expectations. So he keeps trying to, well, he may not be that great, or I don't know. So he's more in intention as a character. He's more in intention throughout the play. So he may be using more weight and more vertical with him. So just from their movements, because the way that they're using their bodies would be in conflict to one another, that will help raise a little bit of the tension that's starting to build between these characters, because in a couple scenes we're going to have the big climax where they're really going at each other. So that's how this works. You take you do your scene analysis, and then you overlay the Laban movement analysis to it. So when I'm directing, I may have different wheels that look like this, different characters laid out. Character 1, Character 2, Character 3, Character 4. So immediately I can see which characters have a lot in common and which characters don't. So most of these characters are committers and are going to use time. Character 3 is more concerned with the future because anticipating is future. So you see this big swath of future. And character 3 in general is going to be more shaping because the large parts of their wheel are the light colors, which is perspective, which would be shaping. The others are more effort oriented. So character 2 being the most moderate here, kind of going with the flow of everybody. Characters 3 and 1 will conflict the most. And character 1 is going to come across the most stubborn because the strongest in intention. Going to come across the most probably, plus it's larger in determining. So that character holds their ground. Character 4 is going to be the most realistic, the most black and white character, because that's that evaluative place where they are seeing things in black and white. They are weighing the pros and cons, and they don't see a lot of shades of gray. So character 4 is probably using a lot of words like, well, that's not very realistic, or we need to look at this, seriously now. They may be telling another character that they have pie in the sky dreams and they need to put their feet on the ground. That kind of thing would be language that an evaluator may use. So in conclusion, movement coaches and those trained in LMA might do these types of things, or might look at a script in this kind of way without necessarily knowing movement pattern analysis. But untrained actors, they really need a place to start. So this really merges, as I mentioned, the psychological work, so the decision making with the physical, in a way that can feel natural to an actor. Many times when I work with actors, I record their monologues, whether I'm going to do their profile or not. I record both monologues, and then we watch them together and turn the sound off. And we look at what movement qualities we see. Could we tell the difference between the monologues if we didn't have the words going with them? And oftentimes, we really can't tell the difference because their movement qualities that they're going to are the same. And 9 times out of 10, those movement qualities that they're going to for their monologues are the same qualities that they use when I do their movement pattern analysis profile, because that's how they like to move, so that's their go-to. So this really opens up an actor into what do I not do that can really be of interest, and how is this character different from me, and how should I physically embody that character. So I really feel as a movement coach that dialing up or down the size and intensity of the movement quality choices that we're making is what can help us fit the style or genre of any piece. I don't know about the rest of the world, but in Chicago particularly, there is this thing that physical theater is this other kind of thing where we move in a weird way and nobody really understands why. And my goal as a movement professional is to get to the point where theater is physical and doesn't necessarily have to be physical theater. So stay tuned. Maybe we'll do more of these kinds of things. Please reach out to me, connect with me. Here's some ways to get in touch with me. Join up on the Labanarium website and ask to friend me, and we can start a conversation. You can reach me at my theater company, which is Reckless Ensemble Theater, at recklessensemble@gmail.com, or my consulting company is Moving Image Consulting, so you can find me there at Alison@movingimageconsulting.com, and that is 1L-A-L-I-S-O-N. I also have a book that I use with my consulting clients. It really goes through that decision-making framework in much more detail. It doesn't have the movement piece because when I consult with business people, I'm not going into the movement part. So I need to write the book for actors as well, and that will be coming. So, but if you really want to have a really solid framework, you can look at that. Find a movement pattern analyst in your area. Go to the Warren Lamb Trust site. I should have put that on here. And you can see a list of all certified movement pattern analysts that are registered with the trust. And those are people that you can literally trust to give you a correct movement pattern analysis profile, and start working with this with your actors today. Thanks so much. Bye all.